Now, voter fraud and voter suppression have been two very big issues this election cycle. On the Democratic side, there was flat-out voter suppression of Bernie Sanders supporters. For example, in New York, you had them purged from the rolls. Millions of people purged from the voter rolls in New York. Okay, you also had polling places around some of the different states. For example, you had Arizona, you had Nevada, you had Rhode Island, that had these polling places that were absolutely shut down. You also had, in many reports, Democrats, sometimes lifelong Democrats, and lots of new Democrats who just signed up to vote for Bernie Sanders being re-registered as independents or being deregistered completely. So, look, we had all sorts of reports of the establishment essentially putting their thumb on the scale for Hillary Clinton using these tricks, right? These arcane rules, these tricks. For example, New York not having voter registration end year before the primary. Well, that's ridiculous. That's the kind of stuff that the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Democrats, the DNC, used against progressives. Now, on the Republican side, you had Donald Trump essentially claiming that the same thing will happen, not just the same thing, that there will be massive rampant voter fraud, and that the election will be flat out rigged against him because, hey, well, look, they did it to Democrats in a primary. Well, they didn't quite do the same thing as flat out rigging. Now, in response to this, he has called on his supporters to start policing polling places, sometimes armed, to discourage voter fraud. Okay. Now, look, I could give you all the statistics again, as I have before, that show that in-person voter fraud is incredibly rare and also a very inefficient way to rig an election. If you want to rig an election, what you got to do is change the rules in your favor. What you do if you have to get a lot of establishment support in order to rig an election, okay? You've got to suppress the other side to rig an election. Don't bother with in-person voter fraud. Once again, it's very inefficient. It's an inefficient way to steal an election. And look, you can get caught very easily doing so, even without voter ID laws. But see, that's exactly what some Trump supporters are trying to do, suppress the other side. Politico reports that Trump-supporting Neo-Nazi groups are planning to, one, flood polling areas in Philly, not only to watch for, of course, supposed in-person voter fraud, but, of course, to actively discourage some people to stay home. Okay, some people. Well, who do you think that they would try to suppress? Black people. Of course. Now, number one, you are not supposed to intimidate voters. You're not allowed to do so. But that's what these so-called poll watchers are really there to do. Now, if you see anybody like that, and when you're voting, you got to remember that they have zero legal authority. And if they're intimidating voters, there's a hotline set up to for people to call that will, you call somebody, they will investigate these so-called poll watchers that are there intimidating voters. Now, aside from simple voter intimidation, these groups are also planning to discourage black voters from participating in the electoral process by doing something incredibly racist, by bribing them with 40's and marijuana. Now, I kid you not. A representative for the pro-Trump website, therightstuff.biz, talked to Politico, and they said, quote, "We have teams going into the ghettos in Philly with 40's and weed to give out to the local residents, which we think will lead to more of them staying home. We have had success in this with this in the past." Oh boy. Not an Onion article, people. This is them talking to Politico. This is them admitting it outright. Yeah, we're gonna send 40's and weed to the ghetto so that these black people will stay home and not vote. Shit, dude. If you're gonna hand out free 40's and weed in my area, especially, look, my area is majority white. My area is 40 years of Republican rule. Even so, if you were to do that here, I can guarantee that a lot of people would be like, hook me the fuck up. I'll take free booze and weed. Fuck yeah. You know why? Because it's free booze and weed. Who's going to turn that down? And look, this is a racist strategy because it fits on those old stereotypes that it's just black people that are interested in drugs and alcohol. No, everybody's interested in drugs and alcohol. A lot of people are anyway. And look, white people statistically are shown to do drugs at a similar rate to that of black people. Sometimes a little bit more. So, but of course, these are neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis are not very smart people. Not a lot upstairs. Okay. And look, why do I say they're dumb? Well, because they're admitting to planning on doing a felony. They're telling people, yeah, we're going to give out weed. Well, weed is a controlled substance in a lot of places. Philadelphia, likely. They haven't decriminalized weed. So you're admitting to doing a felony. Yeah, we're going to give out, we're going to be essentially be drug dealers. We're going to give out free booze and free weed in the ghetto to disenfranchise people. As I said, not very smart. They are not the brightest bulbs on the Christmas tree. Now, Politico also reports that the Oath Keepers are training their members to conduct undercover sting operations to monitor polling places for supposed in-person voter fraud and is aiming to watch, quote, thousands of precincts across the country. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more serious, right? Because, again, this is voter intimidation. You have people standing at polling places, a lot of times with guns, where it's legal to openly carry, of course. And they'll stand there and they'll watch you. Well, you've got no right to do that. You're not a sanctioned official. You're a bozo with a gun. What are you going to do? Seriously. And besides, we have systems in place already to stop in-person voter fraud. One of the reasons, of course, why it's so rare. And again, even if there is, and there is very, very minuscule amounts of voter fraud in that way, casting double ballots, a lot of them are by mistakes. And the rest, well, yeah, you find maybe 2 or 3 people that commit voter fraud within the last, 20 years? It's very rare. Now, Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Center tells Politico, quote, if on the morning of Election Day it turns out that we've had white supremacists standing around looking threatening at polling places, I think it would arouse anger. People would just vote to prove that they're not being intimidated by these radical racists. So basically he's trying to make the point that, hey, if they actually are doing these things, well, the people are not going to take kindly to this. Hey, what are you doing at my polling place? You're watching me. What, you think I'm going to do voter fraud? That's ridiculous. I'm going to vote anyway just to spite your your ass. So, but look, here's the thing, right? See, it's amazing that this is where we're at in 2016 with neo-Nazis not only making a comeback, right? But now they're in the light of day. They're not hiding in the shadows anymore, and they're openly saying, "Yeah, hey, let's disenfranchise those black people. We're going to give them 40's, we're going to give them weed, and they'll stay home on Election Day. So our boy, Donald Trump, can win." Classic voter suppression. And not only that, but it's brazen. Why? It's because Donald Trump has normalized these people. You have white supremacists openly making calls for robocalls for Trump in Utah. Trying to go against Evan McMullin, calling him gay. He's got 2 mommies. Oh, if you didn't hear that recording, you should. It's disturbing. But look, this is where we're at. Yeah, David Duke openly saying, yes, Trump, my boy. He's going to make America white again. Which is essentially what it means. His slogan. And look, I never thought in my lifetime that these people would be back and would be supporting a major party candidate for president who still admittedly has a chance of winning. And if Trump loses, well, these people they're not going away, especially if the election ends up being close. It's going to empower these people and this backwards ideology even more. Now, for me, I say the only hope is to repudiate them at the polls. Make Trump lose so badly that the Republicans say, yeah, never again. Never again will we let the racists and xenophobes in our party pick our nominee. That's what needs to happen. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.